Hey, welcome back to PewTube. I am Kevin Inoue with Fight Designer LLC, and this week, by request, thank you Crazy Airsoft, we have reviews of the new Umarex gas blowback Glocks. Now, for those of you who don't know, Umarex has been pretty consistently the only company making any of these replicas, whether blank firing or BB pellet guns or airsoft guns, that actually goes to the trouble of getting them licensed with the original manufacturer. They have been the main one that's gotten the big brands. So when we could get them in the U.S., we had the Walther the Walther blank firing firearms. We had some from Smith & Wesson. They had some that they make from Ruger, things like that. So they actually go and they get the licenses. H&K. They've got replicas of those that they've done in pellet guns and airsoft guns, things like that. So now they're not always the best replicas for film because some of them the blowback action isn't quite right, or there isn't blowback action or things like that. But the trademarks are nice for close-ups. So there's always trade-offs there. But certainly their front venting blank guns have been amongst my favorites for film work, especially because they're as close as you're going to get to something that'll actually sell as the real deal, even in a close-up on film, which is great. The top venting ones were a little weird because they cut that thing out of the top of the slide and all that. The revolvers aren't bad, but they stopped importing those to the US, sadly. I still have some extras of their Chief Specials that I bought when I heard that they were stopping importing them. So if somebody wants to pick up one of those, let me know. I'm selling those kind of on the side over the course of the years. But the rest I'm kind of hoarding for my rental inventory. But, often blanks are not the best option, whether for safety reasons or for volume reasons or whatever it is. So, blanks can be good, but, sometimes a gas blowback airsoft, especially in conjunction with some CG effects of shell casings and muzzle flash and things like that, and some Foley of the gun sounds in post-production can be a better option, certainly a safer option, and sometimes safer, simpler, cheaper, faster. All of that really matters on a film set. Whether for film or sometimes even for stage, as with the recent production of Gloria that I talked about. Now, another part to this is that Glock has been rather infamously resistant to licensing things. They kind of famously shut down any of the blank firing Glock replicas in the U.S. Maxell had a huge problem with lawsuits and things over the Zorakis that they tried to import for a while, even when they printed not a Glock on the side of them. So, Glock has not been the most cooperative, but Umarex made it happen. So, I don't know if they'll ever actually have any blank firing ones. Might be nice, especially if we ever saw them over here. But in the meantime, what we've got is these Glock 19s and Glock 17s in gas blowback. Now, these exist in CO2 versions as well. I'm less interested in those. Let me tell you why. I can't top off a CO2 thing, which means that a CO2 cartridge, you put it in and you go and it's going to run out at some point, and you can't, unless you want to take it out and put in a brand new one every time, which is kind of a pain in the butt. You can't be guaranteed that you're going to have enough to make it through that take. And it's kind of like batteries for a mic. I mean, are you working on a show? Yeah, you can pop in fresh batteries for every single show. And a lot of people will do that, and then they kind of have a little box of, hey, here's some barely used batteries if you want for your computer keyboard or whatever, which is a great way of doing it. But you can't really do that with CO2 canisters, because once you take it out, the gas just escapes. So I much prefer the green gas for the gas blowback because I can always top them off, I can reuse them, I can save it if I need to, whatever. It's a lot more versatile for me, and functionally they're basically the same. So we've got a Glock 17 and a Glock 19. They come in these lovely licensed boxes. Again, they're really playing up the fact that they got trademarks, and why not? Let's see what we got in here. We have some instruction manuals and the usual warnings, product registration, do not return to the store, and some extra rubber washers. And those are larger than what I'm used to seeing in the magazines. Maybe it's the one in the back. Oh, here we go. And here's the smaller ones. Yeah, so some extra little rubber O-rings for the magazine, which is a nice touch because that is one of the things that tends to wear out first on these airsoft guns. As with most, when you get them, they're going to have this orange plastic tip that is required by the Trade Commission. here in the U.S. at least, for replicas. But if you get permission, you can remove them for things that are solely from then on intended for film and theatrical work. And there's a whole process about that, which I outlined in my book, The Theatrical Firearms Handbook. There's a sample letter. You got to send them in a sample. It's, you know, it's a pain in the butt, but it's ultimately not that big a deal. You get your sample back, all that. So this is pretty nice. You know, I've never been a big Glock guy myself in real life. I like having mechanical safeties. All of my real firearms have actual safeties I can use. This does seem to have the little trigger safety that Glocks have, and it appears to even be actually functional. Yeah, that little drop safety is actually functional. So if you're not depressing the little middle part of the trigger itself won't pull, which is kind of nice. And we've got, so you can see there, we've got full trademarks here on the sides. So nice realistic markings. We've got some nice dots on the sights. We've got the trademarks on the grip. Let's see there. And on the magazine well. The magazine, yeah, if you see it from the back with it partially inserted, yeah, it looks fine. You know, from the side, looks fine. From the front, you can tell it's an Airsoft because you got this, you know, feeder here with the spring. Pretty standard setup here. You can jam that down if you want to. I don't know that this one you'd be able to take the spring out. It looks like the spring also holds in the magazine base plate. So some of these, when I want to disable the slide lock back for being able to fire it without BBs, I can just pull that out. This one probably not, but this also, the other end of that spring is used to hold in the base plate, which I'm guessing is a cosmetic cover. Yes, is a cosmetic cover, which when you slide it to the side reveals where you can fill the green gas. So you'd have to make sure you don't lose those, or else it'll kind of give away the fact that it's an Airsoft. But other than the fact that it's a lot lighter than the real deal, it looks pretty darn good. You know, even the top of the barrel has some trademarks in there. The Glock and the 9x19. It's a nice touch. Level of detail that you wouldn't expect from most blank firing guns. Feels pretty good. Slide locks back. Decent crispy trigger. Yeah, it's not too bad. There's a little bit of a plastic spring sound in there when it does set off. And then the other one we got is a Glock 19. This one I got used off of eBay. But same idea, came with at least the smaller rubber O-rings. And this one actually came with a spare mag, which is nice. Now the 19, for those of you who don't know, is a slightly smaller version. Glock numbers make no sense. It's patent numbers, nothing else. So like a Glock 22 does not shoot 22. A Glock 40 does not shoot 40. The Glock 17 is kind of your standard duty police issue full size. The Glock 19 is actually just a more compact version, slightly, but it's not as small as the Glock 26 or one of those other sort of concealed carry designed ones. So it's a little bit smaller, but not like you'd expect for a you know, a really compact carry gun. But a little bit smaller in each of those proportions. So kind of a mid-size, an in-between. Right, and yeah, this one I've already tested out. I've already jammed the follower so that I can make it do. So one of the things that I want to know when I'm testing these out is, will it work with our standard accessories? You know, you've got your standard Picatinny rail on this, which is great, on the 17 and the 19. Although it's really up close on the 19, so stuff might stick out the front a little bit. But the other question is things like, you know, grip sleeves, other accessories. I imagine that's going to be fairly standard. But holsters is a big one. So let's see, if I have a molded Kydex holster, which I happen to have right here, will it fit? The answer is yes, fits just fine. Now, this has most of them are slightly adjustable. There's a little bolt there. You can tighten or loosen depending on how tightly you want that Kydex to grip. Leather is also generally going to have a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of give in terms of, you know, kind of stretching to fit. Once you stretch it out, it doesn't go back. These you can always tighten them back up later. Oh, that's a little too tight now. I jammed that one in all the way, didn't I? So let me loosen that a little bit now. And I probably have this adjusted for one of my rubber ones or something. Here we go. Yep. So I'm just going to loosen that a little bit. So yeah, the good news is most kydex, because people have different levels of preference on how tight they want it to be, they're usually at least somewhat adjustable. See how the 19 works on that. Oh yeah, it's a great fit for the 19. It doesn't come all the way to the end, so this holster was designed for a 17, I think. So we've got a little bit of extra space down here that we don't need. But otherwise, in terms of just, will it stay? Is it functional as a holster? Yeah, that works just fine with the 19 as well as with the 17. So yes, that was one of the selling points that Umarex mentioned, was that these would work with your standard holster. So if you do own a Glock and you want to use this for firearms training, that it should work with all of your standard Glock accessories. And that does appear to be the case. This holster is a weird between though. Yeah, I just need to loosen it up a little bit to use more regularly with the 17. So let's get some gas in these and see how they do. So not all gas airsoft guns are equal. Things that will vary is how much is metal, how much is plastic. Plastic these days can look pretty darn good, so it's not just a cosmetic thing. It's really more just like how it feels to the actor. How realistic does it feel? And if your actor is willing to do a little bit of mime or endowment to act, then it shouldn't really matter too much. So we're just going to gas this up a little bit. This was a already open thing of gas, so might get a little bit more of it, a brand new one. Let's see how it goes. The fact that this is plastic might actually mean that it goes a little bit faster, which can be nice. For film, if it goes too slow and too sluggish, it just doesn't look like a real gun. But if it's heavier, it does give you a tiny bit of the feeling of recoil, a little bit more kick, a little bit more oomph when it does cycle. So that's kind of a trade-off. I'm guessing this is going to be... Is that aluminum? Yeah, it's actually aluminum. Yeah, it feels fairly light. It's definitely lighter than steel. So you're not going to get as much kick as steel, obviously. Plus we have the lack of mass going forward, so no push, equal opposite reaction stuff going on for actual recoil. But we might get a little bit of something. So let's see how it goes. It's not bad. So yeah, it's reasonably crisp, decent sound. If I were doing something like what I'm doing with Gloria that just opened, with miking it, you could get a decent sound off of that. As with most of these airsofts, if you look down the barrel, you can tell that there's a brass insert there to make it a tighter fit for the BBs. The straight-on view might not be what you'd normally want, but you can tell it does jump just a tiny bit when I fire. And if I were to do a slow motion or something, you'd probably see a slight shudder in my hand. Better than nothing. So yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. I'm pretty happy with that. Nice little bit of detail. They even have like a separate piece here for the ejector, even though they're not actually ever going to eject anything. So yeah, I am really impressed with the level of detail that they put into molding these. I think they did a great job with that. Oh, yeah, this one, I have the spray magazine, which I have not yet jammed back, so it'll think that it'll go to slide lock, thinking it's empty each time with that one. Yeah, cool. All right. And just to double check, this one also, let's see if the drop safety also works on this one. So that's true of both of them. So a nice little bit of added realism, whether you're using this for training, which is not really what this channel is all about, but for theater and film, definitely a nice touch. One thing that varies also between airsoft guns, some of them you can fill the magazine while it's in the prop, and some of them you have to take the magazine out, or else the gas will just shoot straight out the front. Let's find out which one this does. Hey, looks like you can fill it even while it's still inside the prop, which is nice. Get that base plate back in there. I'm just gonna have to hold the slide release down for now because I haven't jimmied that up yet. So that has a nice crisp feel to it. Yeah, it's got a decent sound. It's fairly quick action, not too heavy, a little bit on the light side, just in terms of the visceral experience of it, but you still get a pretty good bit. Bit of action there. Yeah, I'm watching the hairs on my arm, and I can see a little bit of jump there. So, you know, if you wanted to get a little bit of a slow-mo shot even, you could always, you know, CG in the shell casings and stuff if you need to. And yeah, these will work really well close up. They're really the only marking I'm seeing that marks it as something other than a real firearm. You've got the officially licensed product of Glock rather than Glock Firearms. Obviously the orange muzzle you'd have to remove. These do come in Gen 3 and Gen 4, by the way, depending on which version of Glock you want. It's not which generation of Umarex, it's which generation of Glock it's copying. They've got serial numbers, and above that, 6mm BB. So that's another one of those giveaways. But again, when are you going to see a super close-up of that angle? And then a little bit here at the bottom of the trigger guard, there's the usual warning, not a toy, wear eye protection, etc., etc. Read owner's manual available from Umarex, Fort Smith, Arkansas, made in Taiwan, Umarex USA. So that's pretty discreet as markings go. So you're not going to have like that scene from Snatch.
And the fact that you've got replica written down the side of your gun. And the fact that I've got Desert Eagle .50 written on the side of mine.
So it's entirely possible that if I needed to have something fire, if we really wanted the blanks, I could do a slightly wider shot, you know, from out here with something like the Zeraki 917, and then when we cut to a closer up where we might actually see some of those trademarks or something, or if it's, you know, the close-up shot of the gun going in the holster, sitting on the table, then we can use one of these where we can actually see those trademarks, and it'll be a little bit more convincing. So yeah, I'm really happy with these as an option. You know, they're not cheap. I think list price is about, what, 175, something like that maybe, depending on where you go. And you know, the magazine's the usual 45, something like that. So it's not as cheap as some of the you know, KJ Works or KSA or some of the other Glock replicas. But if you compare them, you're definitely getting an increase in quality with that. It's not just the licensing. And if I look at, I can't remember who has that little spider logo. Is that HFC or KS? I can't remember. One of those other Taiwanese airsoft manufacturers. You know, this would be their Glock 26, and it's, you know, it's not bad. It'll hold up from any kind of distance. It still has at least some of the features and looks not bad. Just has 26 there instead of a G26. But the level of finish is still just not the same. You can see like a little bit of mold lines on the sight there. I had to do a little more to take the orange off because the orange was actually painted onto here originally. You know, that says 6x6. This says 9x19. You know, it's just a little bit crisper on this one. And the level of plastic is a little different. This just looks more plastic to me. It's got that shinier kind of finish. The magazine doesn't hide the gas input there, so that's going to be a giveaway. If you have that cheesy 1980s detective pose here with the gun up by the side of your head, that's going to give away the fact that it's an airsoft. Yeah, it just looks, you know, it'll do at any kind of a distance, but up close it doesn't hold up. These will hold up even super close once you take that orange muzzle off. So yeah, there's a lot of good companies that make versions of the Glocks. WE makes some, Tokyo Marui. There's a lot of good airsoft Glock types out there. But this is the only one that's actually gone so far as to get the trademarks, and it looks like to earn that, they've really had to step up quality as well. Or they figured if they were going to be paying for the trademarks, they might as well anyway. And so I'm happy with it. I look forward to being able to showcase them in someone's project sometime here. I don't have these up on the website yet because I managed to actually run out of storage space with my hosting company, so I'll need to either purchase some more or clean some stuff out. I'll try and do that when I get a chance. But until then, you know I've got them. You can always call and ask. Send me an email at action@fightdesigner.com, or contact me through the Facebook page for the company or my own Facebook page, or even comment down here in the YouTube comments and let me know. All right. So I hope that was useful and interesting to you. You can always subscribe, like, comment, send me a question. Let me know if you have something else you want to hear about. And until next time, this is Kevin Inoue. Stay safe, look good, have fun.